Do you wish that you had a time machine? To be a master of the temporal realm with concepts like past, present, and future merely being destinations instead of moments either long past or far beyond the horizon of one's precious lifespan. Would you go back to 1969 to witness the Harlem Cultural Festival? Or maybe you're curious to see if humanity turned to the cyberpunk dystopia depicted in Blade Runner 2049. I mean, I would like one of those sweet coats that Ryan Gosling has. But let's be real. Most of us would use this ability to go back in time and undo those mistakes that nag us in our most solitary of moments, those existentially haunting what ifs. Well, unfortunately, time machines, they don't exist. But what if I told you humanity had the next best thing? And that thing was movies. Movies act as cinematic time capsules, capturing the look and feel of the moment in which they were rendered, like the capsules Ball was throwing around all willy-nilly in Dragon Ball. So when I heard that Pitch Perfect was coming up on its 10-year anniversary, I decided to rewatch it and travel back to the year 2012. Part 1, what was even 2012? I want you to imagine a time that feels so long ago. You awake to the sound of your iPhone 5 alarm going off, letting you know it's the start of a new day. After silencing the alarm in its third barrage of xylophone-esque tones, you stretch out and head to the bathroom. You hop in the shower and decide to jam out to Titanium, letting David Guetta's energetic beats and Sia's soaring vocals just put you on cloud 9. As you luxuriate in the steamy shower, you debate whether to take this musical inspiration over to virtual DJ, maybe creating your own heavenly mix as you imagine sliding the crossfader on your Numark Mixtrack MIDI controller. After hopping out of the shower and getting dressed, you get on Facebook and decide to post a status update about how you can't get Carly Rae Jepsen's Call Me Maybe out of your head. Not wanting to sit in the deafening silence of the day, you decide to jump on Netflix and continue your 20th binge watch of The Office. With the antics of Steve Carell and his helpless employees now just playing in the background, you decide to get on this new photo sharing app called Instagram and see if anybody from your friend group has posted any wild pics from the party from a few nights ago. Oh, the nostalgia. Leave your favorite 2012 memories down in the comments below. 2012 was truly the pre-cyberpunk days. But there was an event so monumental that happened on this year that it changed the very fabric of reality. Something that set a precedent akin to BC and AC, DC. This event was simply known as... It had all your favorite superheroes teaming up in one movie. You had Iron Man flying around shooting beams out of his hands, and the Hulk was all pissed, just smashing things. And Captain America, oh, he was wielding America's ass. And Thor, he was just spinning around and playing with his hammer, and they were fighting off an alien invasion to save New York City, baby. Save it! Then 3 months later, Pitch Perfect came out. Pitch Perfect tells the story of Becca, a rebellious aspiring DJ producer who is reluctantly attending Barden University. While touring the campus, she comes across the head of the Barden Bellas, Aubrey and Chloe, who try to recruit her into their all-female a cappella group, hoping to best their local rivals, the Troublemakers. Becca initially refuses their offer, but is later convinced to audition for them and wins them over with this little ditty.
I got my ticket for the long way round.
Do y'all remember the cultural impact that this moment had? I bet you didn't know that they turned this into a single for Anna Kendrick and that it placed number 6 on the Billboard charts for 2012. Number 6. After joining the Bellas, Becca and Aubrey start to butt heads when Aubrey won't update their musical melodies with anything past the 90s, basically painting their group as out-of-date losers. All this is further complicated for Becca when she's romantically pursued by the persistent but charming Jessie, a fellow classmate of hers, who has just joined the Bella's rivals, the Troublemakers. Just to let you know how different over time 2012 was, when my man Jesse takes Becca out on a movie date and he shows her The Breakfast Club, a movie I've never seen, he decides to play her the movie by popping a DVD into his laptop. A DVD. Also, randomly, Dear Evan Hansen is his roommate. I used to always wonder who this guy was because he was getting quite a bit of screen time, and now the mystery is solved a decade later. During an important event for the Bellas, Becca ends up getting involved in a fistfight between the Troublemakers and the Tonehangers, two of the craziest names I've ever heard. And this results in Becca being arrested, and then also creates like a rift between her and Jesse's like little romantic stuff. The Tonehangers have to be one of the funniest parts of this movie. They have their rendition of T-Pain's Booty Work is just insane. Like the little lead singer's like his little booty wind up. And then Joe the Trulio's just like unhinged improv. Like, listen to this part. If anyone deserved a spinoff, it was them. During another important event for the Bellas, the tensions between Becca and Aubrey really come to a head when Becca, sensing that the crowd is kind of checking out of their outdated musical medley, decides to start singing LaRoe's Bulletproof, which regains the crowd's interest, but backstage, Aubrey and Becca get into a blowout fight, which ultimately results in Becca leaving the Bellas and the Bellas losing the competition. During spring break, the Bellas are allowed back into the competition when it is revealed that the second place winners, the Footnotes, illegally had a high schooler as their lead singer. Though challenging at first, when Becca is allowed back into the Bellas, she really learns to like love these group of girls, and she even gets Aubrey to be more collaborative and allow more input from all the members. She even opens her heart to Jesse. And plot twist, she wins the big acapella contest. What? Who knew that was going to happen? I thought it was going to be like Rocky. Revisiting Pitch Perfect with like 2022 vision, it's still a fun movie. It's a perfect just kind of like put on in the background as like you do some type of house chores movies. We all have those kind of things. Also, thank God that the slang that this movie was trying to peddle of putting aka in front of real words like didn't really become a thing. Because if it did, that would have been pretty awkward. Putting my movie nerd hat on for a second, I couldn't help but notice the influence on this film from the previous king of American comedy movies. Judd Apatow came into prominence around 2005 with his smash hit The 40-Year-Old Virgin, and that gave way to a string of hits through the late 2000s. The two things I would say really characterized Judd Apatow's style of comedy was the fusion of dramatic storytelling that gave way to like boys club style humor that also led to these improvised comedic set pieces. Around the time of Pitch Perfect's release, Judd's style of comedy was already starting to wane with audiences. I can definitely say for myself, the reason I started kind of falling out of love with Judd Apatow's style can be perfectly summed up in Every Frame of Painting's musings on why the American comedy movie had started to grow stale. Take it away, Tony.
Look, everyone's taste is different. What you find funny is what you find funny. So I'm not saying these movies suck or you suck if you like them. What I am saying is that these movies aren't movies. They're lightly edited improv. Everyone stands still and talks at each other in close-up. Almost none of these jokes come visually. They're overwhelmingly sound, and not even the full range of sound, it's just dialogue. And this is really sad because that's just a fraction of what's possible in cinema.
That legacy can be felt in Pitch Perfect in scenes like this.
So I have a feeling that we should kiss. And is that feeling a good feeling or an incorrect feeling?
I sometimes have a feeling I can do crystal meth, but then I think, better not.
Yeah.
Now, I know you've seen the title of this video, and you know that something more critical arose from my 2022 rewatch of Pitch Perfect. See, 2012 wasn't just a time long past. It was also a time before certain key cultural movements like body positivity, #MeToo, PC culture, and the intensifying push of BLM. With these new filters with which to view the world and media, I can't help but ask, should we cancel Pitch Perfect in 2022? Part 2, did you mean with an F or a PH? What comes to mind when I say the word fat? Do you mull over the way the word sounds?
Fat. Oh, that's it, buddy.
Maybe you picture bigger body frames. Maybe you resent me for conjuring up painful memories. As defined by dictionary.com, the word fat means to have too much flabby tissue or being corpulent or obese. As a noun and an adjective, fat is found in Old English from a verb meaning to cram, load, or adorn. Historically, fat surprisingly had a number of positive meanings. In the late 1300s, fat land was seen as being fertile and abundant. In the 1600s, a fat person could be seen as wealthy or affluent. The underlying sense of prosperity still lingers in a term like fat cat, a 1920s barb at a wealthy person, especially one with political influence. But even in Old English, the word fat was already being frowned upon, and the word went on to spawn many insults. As early as the 1830s, the term fathead was already being used to describe people who were seen as stupid or a fool. In the 1940s, the term fatso was used to disparage a fat person. I mean, by this modern time, the overall pejorative sense of the word fat, it still prevails. Pitch Perfect was the first time I had ever become aware of Rebel Wilson, and I'm pretty sure it was the main introduction to her all over the world. She is very much the comedic relief of this musical comedy. Her character is silly, energetic, and just overall a fun-loving person. The movie also wants us to know another trait about her and make sure that we never forget it. And that's the fact that she's fat. They literally call her Fat Amy. This is going to be pure speculation, but I'm pretty sure I know how the producers gave her this name. Okay, we got our cast really rounded out, but there's just one problem that's really tickling my mind. Oh, what problem is that? That Amy character. How will the audience be able to distinguish her from the other girls? Well, she has a different name, and once we cast her, she'll literally be a different person. Nah. I want a way to highlight her that she's different from the other normal girls. Oh God. I got a genius idea that'll solve all our problems. We don't just call her Amy, we call her Fat Amy. Now, the movie tries to be less problematic about this by having it where she gives herself this name, but it's interesting to know why she gives herself this name.
Love it.
What's your name?
Fat Amy.
You call yourself Fat Amy?
Yeah, so twig bitches like you don't do it behind my back.
From her statement, we can guess that Amy has been picked on for her size and that she's trying to take the power back by saying the insult before anybody else. She's using the B-Rabbit tactic from 8 Mile. But is the movie really trying to subvert the insults that are usually thrown at a character like her and people with her body type? Or is the movie just finding another way to mine the character for fat jokes while giving her a false sense of agency? I'm going to go with the latter, because while she says she gives herself the name so skinny bitches don't say it behind her back, clearly showing that it affects Amy in a negative way, the other characters don't choose to just call her Amy. They still choose to call her Fat Amy throughout the whole movie. So they're still calling her fat, and the movie still finds ways to mine jokes that poke at her body weight, even if they're not always direct.
Hey, Amy, sabotage!
It's safe to say that Pitch Perfect does not have a body positive attitude towards one of its main characters. And that's made worse when you take into account how much body weight affects the mental, emotional, and physical health of women on just like a day-to-day basis. One study found that 63% of female participants identified weight as a key factor in determining how they felt about themselves, more important than family, school, or even career. Other research suggests that 86% of women are dissatisfied with their bodies and they want to lose weight. 86%. That is ridiculously high. But hey, maybe this is just one misstep in Pitch Perfect's progressive girl power sheen. Part 3, mostly female cast equals feminism, or not. I want you to take a look at this poster and tell me what energy is it giving. I'll give you 10 seconds. Ready? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, I'm getting impatient. From the desaturated colors, concrete-looking backdrop, punny slogan, and sunglasses rocking cast, denoting that they are cool. See, now that I'm rocking sunglasses, this analysis has got a whole lot cooler. Pitch Perfect is trying to sell itself as a silly but slightly edgy progressive girl power musical comedy. Whether the movie pulls it off, I'll leave to you, but the aspect that I want to focus on is the feminist girl power energy that the movie is claiming to possess. Remember when I brought up Judd Apatow's reign of the American comedy movie? Well, one aspect of Judd Apatow's films was this sort of boys club style of humor. Boys club style of humor usually entails things like sex jokes, gross out humor, self-deprecating jokes, and jokes just about women. This style of humor follows in the tradition of American comedy movies. As a guy, these kind of movies help shape my sense of humor and how I see the world, but I gotta imagine if you're a woman watching one of these films, it must just be like downright offensive, because a lot of the jokes about women in particular can be really mean and degrading.
Great body. Look at that ass. I could lick her waist. No, you don't lick a waist. That's not one of the designated areas.
How you doing, babe?
Oh.
See you later!
Come on, man!
So, in 2012, when women are given the leading roles and the main perspective of a comedy movie, were they able to rid it of this sort of misogynistic boys club humor? Well, in Pitch Perfect's case, not exactly. Within the first 10 minutes of the movie, there's a casual misogynistic comment.
Women are about as good at a cappella as they are at being doctors.
That's only the beginning. Because once the all-male a cappella group, the Troublemakers, enter into this film, the boys' club style of humor starts to become a little bit more prevalent, like with this comment.
Listen up! If this is about the Bellas getting into the finals, we already know. I don't give a crap about those dumb bitches.
Now, to be fair, it's really Adam Devine's character, Bumper, who is saying these casually misogynistic comments. Also, this film was the first time I'd ever seen Adam Devine in something. That's right, Workaholic fans. If you don't like it, fight me down in the comments below. To be honest, I've sometimes wondered when having marginalized communities at the center of a story, if you should depict like an idealized world that is inclusive and free of the harmful acts that usually plague a marginalized group, or to go for a more realistic approach that is less inclusive and depicts those harmful acts that's acted upon marginalized groups that might more accurately reflect the reality of our world. While I've heard good arguments for both approaches, I find that if you're going to go for the more realistic approach that's going to depict those toxic aspects of our culture in a project that's claiming to be progressive, that it's important that you have it where within the projects you comment on why that stuff is harmful, or you pose a possible solution through the stories and characters. Otherwise, it's very easy for something like that to just become misery porn. Pitch Perfect seems to go for an approach that depicts some of the misogyny in our real world, but it doesn't revel in it. When misogynistic comments are thrown at the women in this film, they usually either like throw an insult back or they make a comment about it. Luckily, the misogyny of the film really leaves once Adam Devine's character Bumper exits the film and only really pops up again when we're dealing with the male commentator of the a cappella competition. I'm not really in love with the way this movie tries to wrap up the misogyny that's present throughout towards the end of the film. It's a little heavy-handed and it's not done by one of the main characters.
And from an all-female group, Gail, I could never have called this one.
Never. Well, you are a misogynist at heart, so there's no way you would have bet on these girls to win.
Absolutely.
It's not the smoothest handling of the misogyny that's kind of apparent through a lot of American comedy movies, but I will say that Pitch Perfect does deal with it and it does lessen its harmful effect. I don't think the same could be said though for how the LGBTQ community is represented in this film. Yikes. Part 4, aren't jokes about gay people funny? First of all, I want to preface this section by stating that I am not of the LGBTQ community. So I can't give you any inside deets on how such a diverse community would like to be represented, but I'm pretty sure that Pitch Perfect isn't going to win any GLAAD awards. Cynthia Rose is portrayed by Esther Dean as the only black characters among the Bellas, but that's not primarily how the other characters see her. They mainly see her as a lesbian. It must be nice to have a character of color who is also of the LGBTQ community, but it's not so great how the other characters make comments about Cynthia's sexuality before she's in fact confirmed that she is gay. The other characters feel pretty comfortable making these sort of assumptions about Cynthia through some pretty stereotypical attributes like the fact that she has a more masculine presentation and has an edgy color-dyed haircut. But that is what the other characters are doing, stereotyping Cynthia before they know anything else about her. The movie really likes to mine Cynthia for all the like lesbian puns and jokes they can think of. The jokes aren't even particularly clever, and a lot of the times they're just insults disguised as a joke. But that's not even the worst they do to Cynthia's character. They pair her with one of the most harmful stereotypes of the film, and that is depicting her as being sexually predatory to the other girls in the Bellas. There are several references of the other girls telling each other to watch out for Cynthia, and even a cringy scene where she pretends to help one of the girls up while copping a feel.
I'll protect you! I'll protect you! Hands off me, Woody!
While it is nice of them to have a lesbian character, how good is it if you constantly mock her and depict her as a predator for jokes? And to add further insult to injury, the character that you usually have delivering most of these lines is portrayed by Rebel Wilson, who just recently came out as a lesbian. It almost makes you wish they didn't include the LGBTQ element because they may have done more harm than good. But I'm not gonna lie, when I saw that Cynthia's character was black, I was worried that the movie would just start getting off all its black stereotype jokes. But luckily, we don't live in a world where racial insults disguised as humor would even be allowed to exist. Part 5, Racism Died in 2008 and Obama is to blame. Get Out is a movie that tells the story of Christopher, a black man who goes to meet his white girlfriend's parents for the first time. Did I mention it's a horror movie? When asked where he got the inspiration for the film, this is what writer-director Jordan Peele had to say.
A monster of racism. And, you know, we were in this period where a lot of people were saying racism was done. This was when I was writing this in the Obama era. and we were in this post-racial lie.
I'm a mixed-raced American with a black father who was born in the southern part of America during the Civil Rights Movement. When I was around 9 years old, my father called me into his room and had what many black children will recognize as the race talk. While I'm grateful that my dad gave me this talk in order to prepare me for the dangers that laid ahead in my life, I can also say that it really did reshape the way I saw the world. Race and the way its perceptions weave through every aspect of American culture is something that I'm very acutely aware of. There are times that I wish that movies were unburdened by this weight of racial bias, but with the possible founding of film as we know it being started by a movie like The Birth of a Nation, in which the KKK are the heroes, it's safe to say that movies are linked to this legacy of racism. Before I even endeavored to rewatch Pitch Perfect, I was already a little bit nervous because I couldn't fully remember if the film had some less than sensitive jokes around race, but I was surprised. Not because there's not any racial jokes, but more so that the movie has a subtler version of them. First up is the interesting way that Pitch Perfect tends to combine racial humor with another marginalized community. Take this one for example.
Deaf Jews. Oh.
Shalom.
That's not a real word, but keep trying. You will get there.
Not a lot of Jewish people where you're from?
No, I did do Fiddler on the Roof though in high school. It was like me and some Aboriginals. It was really Jewish. This is full on Jew.
Or sometimes the joke is just a straight up commenting on someone's skin color. You know, the classics.
That means one of us is probably a lesbian.
Think? Which one do you think it is?
My money is on Black Beauty.
So, when I drink too much tonight, can I count on you to hold my hair back if I puke?
Now, to be fair, these aren't the most racist jokes. They could have been way worse, and especially in respect to Jewish people and black people, because it seems no matter where you go in the world, there's some kind of joke about these communities. That doesn't free Pitch Perfect from still utilizing the subtle othering effect that racial jokes possess. Lily, as portrayed by Hana May Lee, is the only Asian character in the Bellas. Her most defining character trait in the group is that when she speaks, no one can hear her because she's so quiet.
I'm sorry, what was that?
Hello, my name is Elena Kurama. I was born with gills like fish.
Hey, I'm calling it.
Oh my god, I asked to go to the bathroom 3 hours ago.
Nothing. I hear nothing.
While it doesn't scream of a racial joke, it still subtly plays to the passive, submissive Asian stereotype. Western culture has a long history of depicting Asians this way, especially in their fetishizing of Asian women. Lily is also shown to be weird and different from the other girls. Yep, that is pretty gross. All these little things add up and make Lily feel strange in a way that creates distance, like, wow, isn't this Asian girl so weird and strange from our other main white characters? Sorry, the subtext just slipped out. But Lily isn't the only Asian character in this movie, and the way this other character is depicted, if only briefly, adds an interesting contrast to Lily. Kimmy Jin, as portrayed by Jin Hee-jung, is the roommate of the main character, Becca. Even in those brief scenes where she appears, we can gather some things about Kimmy Jin. One is that she's Korean. What's up? And two is that she is irritated by Becca's very existence.
Hey, you must be Kimmy Jin. I'm Becca. No English? If I don't actually go to that class, will it still suck?
Look, honey, college it's great. You've been here, what, a month now? Do you have any friends?
Kimmy Jin is my friend.
Nope. Is the white girl is back.
What we just witnessed was known as Korean shade. Kimmy Jin is interesting because she doesn't really fall into any easily identifiable stereotypes. I almost wonder why they just didn't combine Lily and Kimmy Jin. It would have made for a more interesting character. That leads me to one of the least discussed characters in this film, but probably the best depiction of a character of color within this movie. Donald, as portrayed by Utkarsh Ambudkar, immediately caught my eye even the first time I watched this movie. He is swaggy. I mean, check this move out. He literally inspired me to learn how to do that move after watching him do it. Donald is the only character of color among the troublemakers that gets speaking lines. and he's of South Asian descent. He's given a solid amount of screen time and he shines. But what really makes Donald interesting as a character is that at no point in this movie do they ever use his race as an easy way to get a joke. Being that he is of Indian descent, the movie could have very easily used some stereotypical Indian joke. I mean, Lord knows America has quite a few of them.
Oh my goodness, I am spotting a tremendous Woody right.
What's your name? I'm Taj Mahal Badalandabad.
Where are you from, Taj?
I'm an exchange student from Bangalore, India.
But the movie never does that to Donald. The times that were made to laugh at Donald are just based on his character or the situation that he's in. Kind of similar to the one that him and Bump are in when they're drinking at the acapella party.
Yeah, ladies, gather around. Ready for a show?
Come on, baby Bubba, wait in line. Yep.
You want some of this?
I know you do.
Nice.
Bumper and Donald. Getting it.
Now, Donald isn't one of the main characters, but he is a good example of how to handle a character of color by remembering that their ethnicity isn't their entire character, but just something that can inform it. I also can't help but notice that Donald probably has one of the cutest moments with Lily, not only showing that there might be possible romantic interest, but it also allows her character to take on a trait that doesn't play into any subtle Asian stereotype.
9 miles, guys. Pretty good.
I set fires to feel joy.
That's adorable.
Through this whole journey of examining Pitch Perfect, I can't help but notice that there is one thread that connects all the previous elements that we explored earlier. Part 6, it's giving 2012 liberalism. America is more than just a place or its people, it's also an idea. Having grown up in America, you get certain ideas drilled into your head about what America stands for. Many of us recognize this as the American dream. This dream is the belief that anyone, regardless of where they were born or what class they were born into, can find their own version of success in a society in which upward mobility is allowed for anyone with few barriers. So no matter your race, sex, or religion, they won't hold you back. That maybe those things would have held you back in the past or in a different country, but those things don't apply here in America. You don't have to be of royal blood or privilege to make something of yourself, that you'll only be judged on your hard work and merit. Meritocracy, if you will. But as America grew in its age and its power, people started to realize that there was a catch to this dream. I don't think anyone captured this sentiment as neatly as George Carlin.
And nobody seems to notice, nobody seems to care. That's what the owners count on, the fact that Americans will probably remain willfully ignorant of the big red, white, and blue dick that's being jammed up their assholes every day. Because the owners of this country know the truth. It's called the American dream, because you have to be asleep to believe it.
Growing evidence was showing that America was not making good on its ideas of freedom, justice, and rewarding merit. But in 2008, a beacon of change seemingly sprung up to make good on America's old promise, and that hope was named Barack Obama. A black man being elected president in a white supremacist country like America was a big deal, and it seemed to make good on this idea of meritocracy. Obama gave this sense of progressiveness that permeated throughout the country, and we saw various marginalized communities feel empowered enough to speak up and push for more representation within the mainstream culture. But just because you saw more representation and diversity doesn't mean the systems that were already prejudiced against those communities didn't just find subtler ways to be resistant to them. It's like getting a shitty car with a new paint job. The paint may gleam with change and promise, but the car is still going to drive like shit. Hollywood is one of the guiltiest when it comes to playing this kind of optical game. The movie making industry in America is one that's perceived to be composed of liberal elites, those willing to use the power of film to push for societal and cultural change. But similar to the American dream, Hollywood showed cracks in its perceived image. In just a decade from 2010 to 2020, Hollywood had several monumentous events that exposed that it still had a foundation in ideas like sexism, anti-LGBTQ, and racism. The hashtag #MeToo movement, while complicated in its origins and steeped in its own various controversies, seemed to really impact Hollywood, exposing the sexually predatory nature and the degrading whims with which various women within that community were subject to. Just to bring it back to Pitch Perfect for a second, Anna Kendrick spoke up about how her and her co-stars on the set of Pitch Perfect got various notes from the studio heads that they should wear tighter, more revealing, skimpier clothing. Rebel Wilson even came out recently and revealed that on the set of one of the Pitch Perfect movies, one of her male co-stars asked her to come into her room, and then when she followed him, he exposed himself to her and then ordered her to perform a lewd act while there were others in the room, which he definitely messed up there because it turns out that Rebel Wilson has a law degree. While Hollywood has done more in the last decade to have more LGBTQ representation, we're still getting reports of actors being casted in LGBTQ roles who aren't LGBTQ, and also having movies cutting LGBTQ representation to satisfy countries like China. Pixar's Lightyear did a thing just this year where they cut a LGBTQ scene to please China, and it's not as if movies are above using LGBTQ folks as punchlines.
Meet the biggest supermodel in the whole world. This is all.
Are you like a male model or a female model? All is all.
I think he's asking, do you have a hot dog or a bun?
Racism has also been rearing its ugly head in the industry as well. Let's not forget in 2013 when North Korea hacked Sony Entertainment. Do y'all remember when that happened? It hasn't even been a decade yet. The hack leaked various messages between the Sony higher-ups, and it exposed that they had racially prejudiced thoughts, such as regretting casting Denzel Washington in the Equalizer role because they thought he lacked universal appeal. Can you imagine them saying that about Denzel Washington? Maybe North Korea isn't so bad after all. But this kind of thinking isn't just isolated to a company like Sony. Universal also got called out for this when they edited Faison Love and Callie Hawk, the only people of color, out of the couple's retreat posters for the overseas promotion. Even Disney, who's been selling itself on being progressive in the last decade, decided to diminish John Boyega's presence on the Star Wars Force Awakens posters that were used for marketing overseas. All of this racial tension really seemed to come to a head in the industry in the 2015 Oscar So White controversy, where no one of color was nominated for any Best Actor or Best Actresses awards. Let's not even get started on the bubble-bursting idea of Hollywood not rewarding the most talented creators and actors, but instead revealing that the many stars and people behind the scenes who gain power are just products of nepotism. Which brings us back to the subject of this video. If there's one aspect that connects all the problematic aspects of Pitch Perfect, it would be the kind of Obama-era liberalism that made its way through the country after his election. So let's go back through Pitch Perfect with a slightly closer eye. Becca is painted as being rebellious, and one of the main conflicts throughout the film is her butting heads with the old school leader of the Bellas, Aubrey. Throughout the film, we're shown the contrast between Becca and Aubrey. Becca is brunette and has a darker, less feminine look compared to Aubrey, who has a much more traditionally feminine style with blonde hair and blue eyes to match. Aubrey seems to be upper class, especially with her preppy style. It's safe to assume that she probably comes from money. But is Becca really that different from Aubrey? Yes, she may not be the ideal feminine type the same way that Aubrey is, but she's not that far from it. Becca is still fair-skinned, thin, and has blue eyes. Also, Becca isn't poor. Her father is a professor at Bardeen University and even got her a full-ride scholarship to the college. So while they paint Becca as being rebellious and different, she still comfortably falls into Hollywood's preferred type of white, attractive, and thin. She has universal appeal, as the industry would say. The actual characters that stand in contrast to Hollywood's ideal preferred type are either side characters or pushed into the background. That's where characters like Lily, Cynthia, Kimmy Jin, and Donald reside in the film. Now, of course, there was a time in Hollywood where they wouldn't even give characters like this screen time. But to include these characters and not make them the focus of the film, but instead choose to give the spotlight to traditional leads, are we really making that much progress, or is it just the old ways with a new coat of paint? Also, for a film so focused on the act of singing and performing to the point that the other characters are competing with each other, I couldn't help but notice that the people who tended to be the better singers and performers were the characters of color. It's not to say that the white leads aren't talented. They are. But they weren't usually outperforming or out-singing the characters of color. If America is really the meritocracy that it claims to be, and Hollywood an extension of it, then shouldn't the performers with higher skill get more of the focus. It seems for all the posturing of progressiveness that Pitch Perfect subtly and not so subtly claims to have, that a lot of the decisions about how this film was made still falls into the old problematic ways that the Obama-era liberalism claimed to have progressed from. So, part 7, is Pitch Perfect a yay or a nay? Now we have finally arrived at the moment that you, the viewers, have been waiting for. Drumroll, please. When it comes to answering the question of if we should cancel Pitch Perfect in the year 2022, after laying out all my various observations and points, I've come to an answer. And that answer is a resounding, unflinching no. We shouldn't cancel Pitch Perfect. Now, some of you are probably nodding your head in agreement, while others of you may have a feeling of cancellation blue balls. Comment which one you are. I do think that the optics-driven liberal progressive streak that runs through this movie does make for a kinder film. As bad as many of the things I mentioned earlier in this video can be, I don't think many of them are outright offensive or terrible. Maybe it's because of the news cycle that we currently live in that is sometimes so grossly offensive, or maybe it's the fact that I'm a 90s kid, an era that had way more problematic shit, but there's nothing, at least in Pitch Perfect, to me that screams cancellation. But hey, I'm just one person, and with that I ask you, what did you think of Pitch Perfect? Hi, I'm Anaji, and if you found this video entertaining, make sure to like this video and sub to my channel to get more juicy content like this. Till next time, mahalo!